kind of a crossover opportunity here. Something that I think is perfect timing because it's an issue that we've talked about plenty, not just on this show, but on I'll Say This as well. And I want to introduce you guys to Matt Tabor. Matt Tabor. Sorry, I knew I was going to do that. I messed up. Matt Tabor, who is one of the founders of the PitchSafe app. And my first question is kind of just for you to explain what this is, because we've talked a lot on this show, and as baseball fans, this is just kind of the modern age, about pitchers, about arm injuries, and kind of the epidemic that exists among Major League Baseball. If you could explain how this app came about, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No, first off, Chris, thanks for having me. I mean, this is just an awesome opportunity for us, and especially the whole brand. And we talk about it as a movement, right? It's everybody kind of coming on board and saying, "Hey, we care about arm health," and that's really what we want it to be is joining the movement. And so, it's really kind of based on a shared experience from Tyler, my own career, right? So, I'm Matt Tabor, played 9 years in total with Arizona and Seattle around the minor leagues, most of the time in AAA. Then Tyler, my partner, Tyler Beatty, has spent some 5 or 6 years in the big leagues. And, over 20 years of professional experience between us, but also 3 arm surgeries. And so, that's where this kind of, nature and collaboration between him and I came from. And we essentially started, brick and mortar. We started at a facility here in Houston, Texas, really trying to breathe life into guys from the health, recovery, and preparation perspective. And it has worked so well. The Lions Den, which is our facility here in Houston, has grown so much that we decided to essentially take our process there and make it digital for more impact across the entire game, and for younger athletes and players and parents as well. In addition to coaches, right? The way the software actually works is, just as it works for a 35-year-old major league pitcher who can integrate all sorts of things, the 12-year-old kid and his dad can have some easy routines to be able to integrate into their day-to-day, doing the lessons, etc. So really kind of coming in a holistic approach across the board, and getting the opportunity to be on stuff like this with you, Chris, and kind of get the narrative out there is awesome. So I appreciate the opportunity.
For sure, and it's something that as baseball fans we care a lot about, because, and I've talked about it a million times, there's really no injury in sports like Tommy John surgery, in the sense that, it's become this almost like morbid rite of passage for pitchers, where you hear guys having it at least the first time, and you kind of say, well, I guess it was just their time. And there was the famous statistic that came out, I think, in the beginning of the 24 season, which is that there's more pitchers that had Tommy John in 2024 than there were in the entire decade of the 90s. And this might be kind of a difficult question to find out what the inception of it was, but when and why do you think that changed? Like, what do you think led to that curve becoming so exponential, where we went from guys pitching 250 innings a year and not getting major arm injuries to now, like, guys get it in the minors, they get it in college? Where do you think the change came from?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it comes from a combination of the demands of the game, right? You look at stuff like running backs in the National Football League, right? The career length is very, very short, and the demands are super high. And that's kind of where, pitching is moving. But also because of really the high level research and development from some of the best in the space, right? Like, there is a better understanding of movement patterns, a better understanding of mechanical efficiency, a better understanding of everything across the board. And what that's doing is it's creating more output. So the human body is simply able to just produce more force, and that means throwing harder, but that also means more stress on the human body, right? And so we'll never know, right? Like I tell guys at our facility here all the time, I'm like, throwing is unnatural. You were supposed to pick up a rock and throw it at a deer, 250 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to throw it 85 times as hard as you possibly can, right? Like, and so it's no doubt that it's very stressful, right? But I think it really is a testament. The level of performance that we see at the highest level is a testament of all the research and development that then has kind of waterfall down all across the board to even 12-year-old kids and that are going from little league to the big field have a much better understanding and idea of what they're doing, what their process looks like. And it's a great thing for sports, right? At the end of the day, we do want to push the highest level, and now it's kind of working backwards a little bit and saying, okay, how can we ultimately achieve this high level of performance, but at the same time not cost guys 14 to 16 months and sometimes ultimately their career.
Yeah, and that's, you mentioned kind of down at the youth level, and I think that's where it starts in a lot of ways, just because, it is, and like, I'm a pitching fan, we got the Tarik Skubal poster behind us, like, I love the stuff that modern pitchers feature, but I also think that there is kind of a peak that we've reached in terms of output and how we train guys with maximum spin and maximum velo. I just kind of wanted to ask about the youth level for a second. Do you feel like it kind of starts there in regard to maybe the philosophical change that's existed? And if so, do you feel like there's a chance that we could have some sort of throwback in the sense that maybe we're not putting as much pressure on a young pitcher's arms when they're down at that level?
Yeah, I think it's just like everything else, right? At the end of the day, it's kind of just like a game of telephone, right?
Yeah.
Where like the people at the highest level are doing things really well, very calculated. And you're not seeing as many injuries, as many kind of freak things happen. Although it is at a high level, if you actually take a look at like what's happening at 12 to 15, it's a lot different, right? I think it's because like as knowledge kind of gets passed down, as processes get passed down, people start to gravitate towards what they like rather than what they should be doing. And so we see a lot of guys, who come in and pick up weighted balls and throw them as hard as they can. It's like, yes, like these objects are good, right? But like they have to be understood and executed in a certain manner, or else it's simply unsafe, right? And so I think like that 12 to 15 range for parents and players who are listening, like that is the most vulnerable time frame, and that is where every arm injury starts. Whether that's from developing a bad movement pattern, being around a coach that is simply finding things online and kind of throwing them at the wall and seeing if they work, to just get results rather than actual understanding of the whole system and how everything works, from sleep, nutrition, recovery, movement, volume, and everything in between, even understanding the person, his mentality. All these things matter. And that's what we're really focused on is yes, we want to impact the highest level, but in order to impact all levels of the game, we have to start with the most vulnerable population. So trying to deliver something that's so holistic for every single coach, every single parent out there, where with a tap of a button, with a download on the App Store, they can have a mindset coach, strength conditioning coach, a warm-up performance coach, a throwing skill coach, everything in their pocket directly right there for their kid while learning at the same time.
Yeah, and what's so tough with it is that there's not just a variance in terms of, each person's body, but there's just a variance in terms of genetics. Like there's certain guys who throw a ton of innings and then might not get Tommy John till later. There are certain guys who might not get it earlier. Like I think that the idea of every guy who gets Tommy John is throwing 100, it's not necessarily true. Like it can kind of happen anywhere, and I think it makes it kind of difficult. Like I always use this example, but like Verlander pitched more innings than anybody. Didn't get Tommy John until he was deep into his 30s, and so you never really know. And you mentioned nutrition, which is something that interestingly has, as Tiger fans, has actually been something that's been brought up over the last several years about our player development. It was kind of a famous quote a few years back that when our current president, Scott Harris, got hired, one of the minor leaguers was asked, what's the biggest difference under his regime? And he said, we know what to eat now. Like we have chefs and we have cooks and we have people that tell us. I guess as somebody who probably is much more well-versed on this, if you could explain just how important nutrition is to the pitcher and how it can impact potentially the damage that's done on the arm.
Absolutely. Well, I think it comes down to this, and this was said one time to me, and I'll never forget it. But would you put 87 in a Ferrari? Right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's as simple as that, right? Like everything in your body is ultimately made up of what you eat, right? And even honing it down to like the baseball specific, pitching specific, right? The ligament is made up of collagen, right? We've seen it on shelves at grocery stores. It's in fish, right? It's in all these sort of things. And so like the more that you can supplement your diet in a healthy way that's recommended by a nutritionist with some of these things, you're just going to recover better and your body is just going to naturally heal better, right? At the same time, while decreasing inflammation, right? And I'm no nutritionist. I'm speaking based on personal experience and my playing career and what I've learned from all the highest, achieving individuals in the space on some of these fronts. But when you do have inflammation in your body, now your body has to fight through inflammation before it even gets the chance to repair itself, right? So if you are not sleeping and you're eating like crap, right, like you are just delaying the process of actual recovery, which is so important when you start to move up higher levels. College, maybe you're pitching, more, right? You're throwing more bullpens, your catch play is more intense, and you're playing longer seasons. Then you get to the professional level where now you don't throw every 7 days in a game, you pitch every 5 days as a starter. And it's about optimizing the recovery that goes unnoticed sometimes, that really can change guys' careers and also ultimately impact performance, right? And so like that is really, I think, like what we've observed and been through in our career is that like you can't ignore health. And I think like they're too siloed out right now, health and performance. It's either like you have something that takes care of your health, but you don't have the vehicle to directly see how it affects your performance. And so at PitchSafe, that is what we are trying to deliver for guys at the highest level is like, hey, if you sleep 8 hours and you eat really well, like your TrackMan report and your spin rate and your vertical movement is like right here in the same place. And so you can start to see like, okay, if I'm sleeping 6 hours and my vertical break on my heater went down 2 inches and I got hammered and gave up, 5 runs in 5 innings. And then the time I slept 9 hours and ate really well, I went 6 shutty and we won the game, right? Like that's a really easy correlation to buy into as a player, right? And the same thing for parents and players at the amateur level all the way down. So, roundabout way, but I hope that does answer the question, Chris.
No, and I appreciate it because I think that we focus on velo and we focus on spin, and then when a guy gets injured who throws hard, we just kind of immediately chalk it up to, oh well, this is why it happened, or when there's a lot of different factors that kind of go into pitching development, and that kind of leads to my next question, which is there's just, and it's like this with position players, but we're focusing on pitching obviously with this one. There's certain organizations that I just trust to develop pitching. And there's certain organizations that I don't completely trust to develop pitching, whether it be because the performance falls off or the surplus of arm injuries that come from that organization. From your standpoint, what do you think is the one thing that you feel like organizations get wrong about pitching development that often leads to maybe a lack of success?
Without a doubt. I think it comes down to one word. It's so basic: communication. Trusting the player and communicating with the player. We're hanging our hat on this that 90% of injuries could be saved or at least delayed by simply just having a conversation and allowing the player to trust that, and then having that person that's receiving that news trusting the player. I think far too often, at the highest levels, there's egos that get in the way. And, when an athlete wants to be on the field at all times, but when he speaks up, it's because something's wrong. And there should never be, a shutdown or, saying, hey, that's not correct, this is correct, right? It's hearing from the athlete and saying, how can we help you? Understanding what the athlete's perspective is. If this is his livelihood, this is how he feeds his family, and he's never going to pull himself off the field unless, there's something really wrong. And so really like that is, I think, what from all aspects, what separates the best from the mediocre is that they communicate and they trust their players, and really kind of even down through the amateur level too. Like there's toughness that is required to execute an 0-2 pitch, an 0-2 slider in the dirt, right? Most guys that make it to a certain level, they have that intangible. But toughness isn't pushing through arm pain, right? Like it's not like other sports, right? You need to understand where it's coming from, why it's happening, and then intervene at the right time to ultimately, save that athlete's arm and career, right? Like, when I tore my UCL 2 weeks before I knew it was happening, I threw a cutter in a bullpen and it was awesome. I had a goal with the organization that I was going to essentially kind of like work on this new pitch. I didn't tell anybody. I pushed through it. I didn't feel like I had a trusted individual or was able to communicate that. And if I did, who knows what would have happened, right? Maybe I wouldn't be talking to you here, Chris, today, right? I would be throwing that pitch maybe at the highest level because it was really, really damn good. And so it's those two things. I think we do so many things at the highest level through research and all these things, and it really just comes down to trust and communication from the athlete, the parent, and the coach.
Yeah, and I feel like very often with Tommy John, or really any major arm injury, often there's like sometimes there's a bit of a gradual decline in terms of performance by the pitcher, and then comes the UCL tear, and usually it stems from the fact that there's probably arm pain that they don't want to tell the trainer about, they don't want to tell the organization about. And I think it's, as competitors, that's like natural instinct to just be like, man, I want to fight through, especially if you're a fringe major leaguer. You don't want to go to the IL because there's a chance if you get sent down, you might never get called back up. So it's one of those kind of frustrating things. And I remember last year during a Tiger game, and it was scary, obviously, but it was one of the starts in September. Tarik Skubal called the trainer out, and he was taken out of the game. And as frustrating as it was in the moment, X-rays negative, made his next start, where it's like if he would have kept pitching in that game, who knows how much weaker, he could, how worse, that injury could have gotten. So I think communication is a perfect word for it. What's interesting is that we live in this age where arm injuries are more prevalent, but starting pitchers as a whole are pitching fewer innings. And I think so much of that is the fact that, like, in the 1970s, teams didn't have entire bullpens of guys that threw 100. Like, it's a much different game from a strategy standpoint. But do you also feel like the parameters for starting pitchers have changed, whereas it used to be about going deep and maybe finishing the game, as opposed to today it's closer to, hey, give me your best 5, give me your best 6, and we can turn it over to the pen. I guess let me rephrase my question. Do you feel like if they wanted to, starting pitchers could go 200-plus innings a year, or do you feel like what we teach pitchers nowadays simply would not allow for their arms to hold up over time?
No, I do think strategy is the right word for it, right? I
Yeah.
think that the game is just drastically different. And the game is always going to go in ebbs and flows, right? Like
Mhm.
there's so many nuances to it, and people will value things at certain times and then are devalued later on, 10 years down the road, et cetera, right? And I think like what's valued now is like the wow factor, entertainment, and like big plays and just big things, right? It's very from like just life in general, right? Like it's you want to see like the big thing, right? And it's awesome, and we all love it, right? And so I think like for sure, like when what we see on like kind of the back end, right, is just like we see improved mechanical efficiency. We see research coming down from the top that is helping guys get so much better. I truly believe that there's argument that the people that do it right and do kind of understand like the funnel from utilizing the research to optimize mechanics to optimizing volume, health recovery. I think that players actually today will have a better chance of even going farther
Yeah.
than some of the guys did because of the way that we've obviously we figured it out. We're optimizing human performance as much as we possibly can. I think you get into a bit of the downfall cycle when the body just has more stress than it can handle, and that's mental stress, physical stress, like arm stress, everything in between. And no doubt when you're pitching in front of 60, stressful, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a lot to that. And so yeah, I guess long answer, I think like what we're doing in the game right now is really good, right? Like it's awesome to see, and it delivers the component that everybody wants, which is the wow factor, right? And I think it's much more of a strategy component of being able to develop so many of these guys that are so mechanically efficient and so efficient in their power output that they can do these crazy things that like even when guy goes from 90 to 85%, whereas before you keep him in the game till he's 75%, you pull him. But now it's like, no, I've got this guy in the bullpen that throws 100. He's 100% ready to go. Like, why wouldn't we use him? It's a better chance to win the game. So
Yeah, yeah, and that's generally my kind of stance on it. Is like I just think we put it on starters as if like the role of the starting pitcher has decreased or as if starters have done something wrong. I just think it's more so pitching development. Good organizations are loaded with guys that feature stuff out of the pen that didn't exist 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that allows for pitchers to probably not go as deep into games because, like you said, you have a fresh guy out of the pen who's available. And one guy who obviously made himself, he was already probably a big name. I mean, especially with the contract he got. But Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a legendary performance in the World Series this year. And it's one of those things where I'm not saying we take it for granted, but the guy pitches Game 6, has a wonderful performance. The next night, Game 7 goes to extra innings. He comes out of the pen. If you could, as somebody who has experience pitching professionally, just in layman's terms, explain how ridiculous that is to be able to, as a guy who's typically used to the every 5-day grind of just pitching in a rotation, to be able to come out of the pen after, I think it was 90-something pitches the night before and pitch effective baseball. If you could just explain to the people like what an achievement that is.
yeah, I mean there's no words to really describe it. Like legendary is probably like the only one, and it because like from a pitcher's point of view who's been through it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's really no like way you can explain how you feel after throwing 7 or 8 innings like
Yeah.
with that much adrenaline. Like and not only like is like your arm sore like normally, right? Like your muscles and things like that, but like your central nervous system is completely shot. Most guys don't really sleep very well after the day of their start, right? Like they're so wound up. They've been pitching in front of thousands of people under the lights and like very big time like fight or flight survival instinct environments, right? And so to be able to come back and not only like execute again on like the highest stage, but also do so in a way that you would never even know that he pitched the previous
I
night
know.
with the quality of his stuff, the quality of his execution, even just like the way that he presented himself and his body language and mentality on the mound. It was unbelievably impressive. And I think that is probably one of the more impressive things that you'll see in all of sports in the next 10 years, but also probably one of the more impressive feats in the World Series that'll be, stand for a long time.
Yeah, and it's incredibly impressive to watch. I also think that like it's just impressive enough to volunteer to do it. And I think that also speaks to how well he knows himself and his body, where he felt like, okay, look, I can go. I'm ready to pitch. I'm ready to to come out of the pen. And look, you get that lucrative contract. You got Game 7. Yeah, I mean, that was great. I want to see a guy out there. It was really impressive. I've seen this app that you guys have put together, and I think it's a really unique idea. One of the themes in the show, like, we respect grinders. We respect people who are trying to build stuff, whether it's an app, a YouTube channel, a playing career, what have you. Up to this point, who is like maybe the most intriguing name that you've been able to kind of get attached to the PitchSafe movement?
No, that's really good. I think, we're still kind of rolling it out. I think, like, we're definitely focusing more on like organizations, right? So like we have a really good relationship with the Evo Shield Canes. That's been awesome. We were actually just at the baseball factory Under Armour headquarters in Maryland, meeting with all of their regional directors, getting some of them on board. So it's been awesome to have an organization that's so influential in the amateur space be able to utilize this. But also like the highest level, like Vanderbilt, they've been getting a few guys on it, which has been awesome. And Tyler's kind of leading the charge there as an alum, kind of giving back to the school, and being able to communicate with guys that have a real chance of being in the big leagues in 2, 3, 4 years. It's been absolutely awesome. And so, yeah, really across the board, right, from the highest level Division Ones to all the way down to the amateur level of, even like the 10, 11 Evo Shield Canes and their parents that are associated with it. I think it's much more of an education play. It's awesome. And, it's really cool to connect the whole community. And we're going to continue to do that. I think, like, one of the coolest things about PitchSafe is, like, when you see our marketing stuff right now, it very much kind of shines as a product. And what I really want to like get to over the next couple months is that it's a platform and it's a movement. And so, everything's themed in baseball cards. It looks like MLB The Show. It's awesome, right? But we're going to be hosting some of the best people on PitchSafe, which is going to be great. So the best trainers, the people that we all know that we have relationships with from training or consulting or whatever with, right? They're going to be creating baseball cards. And it's essentially going to be everybody kind of collecting these creators and these the best people in baseball. So that way no one's ever lost anymore, right? There should be a very easy way for every 12-year-old kid and his dad to turn and say, okay, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Not because I saw it on TikTok, but because it's vetted, it's here, it's delivered to me based on my inputs and my journals, and I'm being educated at the same time about the importance of a holistic training method, which has been awesome.
Yeah, and you mentioned, obviously, Tyler getting Vanderbilt involved, and, for the people watching, you might not understand, like, that's basically like getting Alabama involved in a football app. I mean, Vanderbilt has become the factory of, and I believe, if my recollection is correct, I think national champion at Vandy, right? For Tyler, that at least one of those years at 14. That was the one of the Dansby Swanson seasons. So you mentioned it a little bit already in that last answer, but do you guys set long-term goals for this stuff? And if so, like, what is the ultimate long-term goal that you're looking to get to with this app?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really is to connect everyone, right? Like, Major League Baseball did their big study about, 4 or 5 months ago. Maybe it was a little bit longer. But it was about essentially like the arm health crisis, right? And they did a lot of research and everything. And they were able to make some good conclusions, right? Which was that the increase in velocity, right? Throw harder, higher output, more stress on the body, ultimately more injuries, right? But their ultimate conclusion was an all hands on deck approach, right? And they said that, and that's what we're trying to deliver is there's so much great things out there, right? Like, we're players, like, we don't have, the science background, right? We've lived it and we've experienced it, and therefore we know. And so our job and kind of what we feel like we're called to do is create the best delivery method possible for all this information that's out there. Because I think, like I talked about before, it's this game of telephone, and the wires are tangled, they're not super connected. By the time it gets down to the amateur level, it's not necessarily reaching them in the same, high level calculated way as it needs to be. And so delivering that to those guys in a way they can understand, they can relate to, like, it's fun, it's engaging, and it's a movement of everybody across the game of baseball being able to impact athletes through trust, communication, and ultimately fun and enjoyment, bringing some of that back to the game as well. So that's where we want to go with it. As many people as we possibly can get involved. So if anyone's watching, right, reach out to me, drop my contact info in there, Chris, and please, if you want to be a part of the movement, like, join. It's awesome. So.
No, we'll definitely link to all your guys' stuff in the description for this video and on the in audio form on the Apple Podcast and Spotify as well. Last question for you here, and I know that you obviously, with every pitcher in baseball, you don't have an in on what their daily routine is necessarily, but who do you feel like in the modern age is a pitcher, both mechanically and in terms of their stuff and how they take care of their body, do you feel like is the perfect mold of what a modern 2025 MLB pitcher should look like?
It's a good question. I'm gonna have to think on this one here. Um, Best movement efficiency. I mean, easy answer is Yamamoto because it's like it's
Yeah.
right there in front of us. And I know that's been kind of all around, right? Like his javelin routine,
Mhm.
like the way he long tosses, all that sort of stuff. I think a really good one. I mean, Justin Verlander, right? Like
Still,
you
I
look
know.
at yeah, like you look at somebody who has stayed consistent over 15 years and I mean, he's almost in his 40s and he's still,
He
throwing
is.
for 90s. It's unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
like Tom Brady-esque, right? And I think like we talk to our young athletes a lot about this, right? And I say it all the time, like look at the best in the game, right? They haven't changed for 15 years, right? They know what they're good at and they continue to do that. And they have the ability to set a purpose every single day and execute that purpose. And that purpose isn't, I'm going to throw something at the wall and change my mechanics, which is like such a drastic decision that like should take a lot of consideration and like consultation with like a coach that knows what he's doing or is something like that, right? It's not just like I'm going to try something today, right? Like the best in baseball, like figure out movement efficiency, keep it the same. And they optimize everything else. They optimize sleep, they optimize nutrition, they optimize the volume, and like that's what Verlander has most likely made adjustments on over the last 10 to 15 years is he's found ways to adapt what his body can take. He understands that part of the game, and his purpose every day isn't to get an extra 2 miles an hour. It's to move well and be ready to go and last that full season, and do so in a way that's conducive with the stage in his career, right? So super important, like, for parents that are going to different pitching coaches or everything, right? Or even like, an athlete that's 16 or 17 that's listening to this that just is constantly trying to find a fix. It's like, the fix comes from consistency over time, right? Your focus is to find somebody you trust, give them that task, and then you optimize everything else across the board. You should wake up every day saying, how can I recover the best? How can I train the best? How can I ultimately buy into whatever concepts are being given to me the best and do so in a way that it's like my full-time job and I'm absolutely getting after it. You do that, you're gonna get really far.
Yeah, there's no pitcher in my lifetime that I think knows their body better than Justin Verlander. And he came up through the system with the Tigers, had the triple-digit fastball, but as he developed as a pitcher, I've always loved, and I bring it up all the time, his buildup and the fact that he'll start a game, at his peak, covering 93, 94, and by the eighth inning, you're seeing 100. I think that that's very much a lost art, and I think that's allowed him to, he learned how to pitch, and that's allowed him to extend his career, into his 40s, and, there's still the dream that he's going to sign a one-year deal here, and we're going to see him finish his career in Detroit. Maybe not, maybe not. But well, look, we're right on time here. I appreciate you. Like, this is a really cool opportunity. This is stuff that Austin and I have talked about it. We care a lot about this. We love this game, and we've seen a lot of pitchers that we love, both in our organization and other organizations, struggle with arm injuries, and the way that it can really impact careers and really impact organizations. So I think it's a really cool thing that you guys are doing. We're going to make sure to continue to promote it and follow along with it as hopefully it grows. But for the time being, thank you for being on Chris and Company.
I appreciate it, Chris.
You never know how things are going to go with some of these interviews, and this was something that Austin had turned me on to. And like I said, there's kind of a roll of the dice, and that's one thing we like to do on this show. But I actually thought that was really informative and really good. And I think that people that love baseball and are aware of some of the issues that plague the sport as it pertains to arm injuries are going to get a lot out of that. I think I said this off the air and on the air. I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing. It's an epidemic in baseball, the arm injuries. And of course, like we didn't get as deep into it necessarily, but these guys know that there's no way to prevent arm injuries. But the statistics that have come out that have led to seasons, careers being impacted or derailed, it's pretty staggering. And I think that any process, or in this case, any app that can maybe help slow that curve a little bit is a very important thing. So we will make sure to promote the work that they're doing and hopefully see this thing grow. Like I think it's an awesome idea, and I think it has a lot of potential. So happy to have Matt on and discuss all this, and we'll be in touch with them. But that will do it for today's episode of Chris Company. You can follow me on Twitter at Castellani2014 while we're at it. You can find us on TikTok And if you're watching on YouTube, you can hit that like button. You can hit that subscribe button. Let's get those watch hours up. We are available in audio form on Apple Podcasts, available in audio form on Spotify. And in the description for this video, if you're watching on YouTube, we link to everything involving PitchSafe. We link to Matt's account. We link to Tyler's account, making sure that you guys can get your eyeballs on that. We want that thing to continue to grow. We've had a lot of good luck with this show up to this point, and I greatly appreciate it. And of course, I greatly appreciate my friend and producer Austin Cisler, who continues to do a marvelous job. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. I will talk to y'all again real soon. Have a great rest of your week. Peace and happiness.